All right, now that the World Cup is over, I think it's very important that we talk about probably the United States' most talked about player in Captain America himself, the LeBron James of soccer himself, Christian Pulisic. And we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Christian Pulisic's career as a United States men's national team player. Let's go back a little bit over 8 years ago and go to Christian Pulisic's debut game for the United States men's national team. On March 29th, 2016, Christian Pulisic made his debut against Guatemala in World Cup qualifying. He enters in the 81st minute for Graham Zusi, and by doing so, he became the youngest American to ever appear in a World Cup qualifier. And I remember this. I remember this game. Me and Christian Pulisic are the same age. And I remember watching this being like, oh my god, this is sick that someone who's my age is actually competing on the world stage in a World Cup qualifier. And this was the first real glimpse we get to see of Christian Pulisic on the main stage. He didn't score a goal, but he did get in the game and he did make his first ever appearance. Eventually, in the same year of 2016, he scores his first international goal against Bolivia. And he also, not only did he become the youngest player to ever debut for the United States, he became the youngest player ever to score a goal for the United States. Also, he was called into Jurgen Klinsmann's squad for the 2016 Copa America. And he began earning regular playing time, despite being someone who was not even able to vote at this time. And expectations were starting to skyrocket, where many Americans, including myself, saw this kid as the new hope for the future of American soccer. And he was voted the U.S. Young Player of the Year. During the 2016-2017 FIFA World Cup qualifying, Pulisic scored 2 goals and assists against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He became the youngest player to score in the World Cup qualifier for the United States. He also became the youngest player to score 2 goals for the United States at all. He also scored 2 goals in a game against Trinidad and Tobago. Not that Trinidad and Tobago game, but we're going to get that game. And he scored against Panama during a 4-0 victory that kind of pretty much almost guaranteed the United States would qualify for the World Cup. However, the United States finished World Cup qualifying by losing to Trinidad and Tobago. And I remember watching this game. I was home from college at this time because there was really big wildfires up in Northern California. And I remember watching this game in like 144 quality with the stream I was watching it buffering like every few minutes, where I would lose like 5 minutes at a time. So I remember being very pissed during this time and so shocked that the United States failed to qualify. And Pulisic kind of became a part of like this failure of the United States to qualify for the World Cup. Even though he wasn't really at fault, he finished the final qualifying round with 5 goals and 3 assists, which is pretty good. He was a big part of the United States, where he even had a chance to qualify on the last day. And the failure wasn't Pulisic's fault, but a lot of people like put him together with that group of players who failed to qualify for the World Cup. He was always used for images of them after qualifying, of him crying or crouching down on the sidelines, even though in reality he wasn't the fault. At a very young age, Christian Pulisic is already being asked to carry a nation before he was even old enough to legally have a drink in the United States. And this led him to becoming the face of the United States for the rebuild for the 2022 World Cup cycle. After the failure of 2018, Christian Pulisic becomes the face of the United States. A lot of guys from his generation of players come in and join the United States during many friendlies throughout the next year. Greg Berhalter is hired as the new coach, which put off a lot of American fans, but many stayed on and remained hopeful because of Christian Pulisic, when a lot of the times you maybe would have jumped ship. I only watched and stayed watching the United States because I had belief in Pulisic, in these young guys, that, hey, they're my age, they're doing something way better than I could ever do with my life. And they were doing something. And then on November 20th, 2018, he becomes the youngest captain in USMNT history, where he captains the United States against Italy. He was only 20 years old in 63 days. And then a little bit less than a year later, on March 26, 2019, he became the youngest American to score 10 goals. He was still 20 years old at this time as well. And he was the symbol of hope for many U.S. fans. And he was our glimmer of hope. And he carried that hope into the 2019 Gold Cup, where he was the face of the team. He scored 3 goals, got 3 assists. He pretty much carried the United States all the way to the final of that Gold Cup, but the United States did lose 1-0 to Mexico during that Gold Cup. But we're starting to see the U.S.'s identity at the time, where we see how dependent the U.S. is on Christian Pulisic's quality and how reliant on Pulisic's quality. And we really see this flourish, and kind of we see the end of the rebuild, where it's considered a success during 2021 in winning the Nations League. So in 2021, the CONCACAF has its first ever Nations League. It's weird. It's stupid. It doesn't make as much sense as the European Nations League. But this match, the U.S. versus Mexico match, is wild. If you haven't watched it, you should definitely go watch it. It is an insane match with fights, so many VAR reviews, projectiles, fan issues, fans jumping over pundit, the pundit area at the stadium. It's a wild game, but you should watch it. But this is kind of where Pulisic kind of takes hold of the moniker of LeBron James of soccer, the Captain America, where he says, "I'm the man. I'm going to carry us forward." The game's in extra time. It's tied 2-2. The United States gets a penalty, and Pulisic drills this penalty to secure the win. And he takes off his shirt, celebrates, gets doused with beer, and you really see like him embracing the moniker. And this was probably the most memorable moment of his international career so far, where he is the guy taking center stage. He is the guy saying, "I am the man. I am gonna win it for the United States." And like I said, if you haven't watched this full match, I would go watch it. After the Nations League, we go into the 2021 Gold Cup. And Christian Pulisic does not play in this Gold Cup. And this kind of creates a theme going forward for Pulisic and the United States, where a lot of European players don't play in Gold Cups. It's for the younger guys as well as the MLS guys to take the stage. And this is kind of what Greg Berhalter said, that like the ideologies, the foundations, of what U.S. soccer was going to be, where guys could pick and choose what friendlies, what games they want to play in. And this becomes very controversial later down the line. Now we move into the 2022 World Cup cycle. Christian Pulisic makes 11 appearances during this World Cup cycle. He scores 5 goals. He also gets 3 assists. I'm also noticing I'm saying a lot. I need to get better at doing that, but we'll get better as we continue to make more videos. Anyways, during this time, he logs more than 700 minutes during World Cup qualifying. And he's still one of the most important players on the squad at this time. He scores a hat trick against Panama. He scores a penalty against Mexico, where he doesn't take off his shirt, but he lifts up his shirt to show the man in the mirror, which is him pretty much talking shit to Guillermo Ochoa, the Mexican goalkeeper, who said, "Oh, the United States wants to be like Mexico." However, during this World Cup cycle, his injuries start to pile up, and they're never really big injuries, but they're injuries that ruin his rhythm, where he's not able to play for a game or two for his club, or he needs to rest. He can only play like a third of the game, and he starts to lose rhythm. And when he is entering camps, he's losing fitness. His rhythm is off. He doesn't look like the same Christian Pulisic we've seen before. Especially in Berhalter's style, where Pulisic is the one creating chances. He has to be on the ball, the guy who has to win fouls, which I actually think relates a lot to Pulisic's injury history, where he is drawing a lot of fouls and he is getting hurt. And I think that is taken a toll on his body throughout the years. Before the World Cup in 2022, the United States had a friendly in June. The World Cup doesn't take place till November because it was in Qatar. But the United States has a friendly against Morocco in June. The friendly is at TKL Stadium in Cincinnati. It holds about roughly 26,000 people. However, a little bit over 19,000 people showed up for the friendly against Morocco. And a lot of them were Moroccans. The United States did win the game 3-0. But after the game, Pulisic was asked, what did he think about this fan support? And Pulisic responded, saying, to be honest, for whatever reason, I'm not super happy with the amount of Americans here. However that works out, if I'm being completely honest. But thanks to the ones who did come, and the support is always great from here. These comments created a bit of a controversy for American fans because it felt like Christian Pulisic was blaming the United States soccer fans for not coming to the game when the tickets were averaging about $150 for friendlies. It kind of showed a disconnect between the fans and Pulisic, when Pulisic really should be blaming U.S. soccer instead of Pulisic for having the friendly be in Cincinnati, as well as having very expensive ticket prices for a friendly. And many criticized Pulisic during this time for not really thinking about the fans and for not attending an expensive game. And this is kind of one of the first moments you really see a disconnect and criticism towards Pulisic from the fans. Now, let's talk about the Qatar World Cup. This is Pulisic entering his first World Cup after missing the 2018 qualification. In the first game against Wales, he records an assist for Timothy Weah, and he creates several of the United States' best chances during the group stage. He was very dominant against England and had so many good opportunities, and the United States realistically could have won that game against the English. He scores the winner against Iran in the final group stage game to secure the United States' qualification into the round of 16 by putting his body on the line. He pretty much dives at the ball with his chest kind of like this and runs into the keeper, pretty much destroying his nuts. But people were really appreciative that he was putting his body on the line, putting his nutsack on the line. And he left the game injured during this time, but was ready for the round of 16 game against the Netherlands. However, the United States would lose that game, mainly because the United States lacked a lot of creativity and a lot of the game had to go through Pulisic. But the Netherlands were a lot better team than the United States, and the United States' tournament ended. But this was considered a success, getting back to the World Cup for the United States, Pulisic getting a goal and an assist. But it left questions about the future of can the United States continue to build upon this success and making it back to the World Cup. And their first major chance to build upon this success was the 2024 Copa America, where the United States was hosting. They hosted the tournament back in 2016, where the United States actually finished in 4th place in the tournament. However, it would be a lot different this time. They won their first game against Bolivia, where Pulisic looked very good. He had a man of a match performance against Bolivia in that first game. The United States were the better team. However, everything kind of went downhill against Panama. With Timothy Weah getting a red card, the United States were behind the ball and would lose against Panama and Uruguay in their final 2 group stages to get eliminated from Copa America. And you could see during those 2 games, Pulisic was getting angrier and angrier with the referees. He's trying to play hero ball. He's getting frustrated. And we start to see a different side of Pulisic that we haven't really seen before. A guy who's complaining, a guy who's giving up when shit hits the fan. And his mentality is starting to be questioned when the going gets tough. So, due to the United States getting eliminated from the 2024 Copa America, Greg Berhalter is sacked, and now comes in Mauricio Pochettino to coach the United States. Because Mauricio Pochettino joined midway through the cycle, he didn't have Copa America for him. All he had was the 2025 Nations League and the Gold Cup. So the Nations League ends in disappointment, where the United States lose a semifinal to Panama, which they had never done before. And this led to Pochettino really wanting to bring a full squad into the Gold Cup in 2025. However, the mentality created by Greg Berhalter in the past system, many European players didn't want to participate in the Gold Cup. And Pulisic was one of those players that chose to skip the tournament after very consecutive demanding seasons for AC Milan. He explains that he needed physical and mental rest during this time. And this didn't go down well with Pochettino and fans as well. Pulisic also later said he wanted to play in the friendlies, but he didn't want to play in the Gold Cup. Pochettino wanted players who wanted to be there for everything. And this created even a bigger divide between fans and Pulisic. There's a big backlash with Christian Pulisic. where many are arguing it's like it's very disrespectful to turn down opportunities to play in a tournament for your national team. And there's a lot of backlash towards Pulisic, and it even got to the point where he decided to delete his social media from his phone because he said the backlash was way out of line. And it led to a lot of U.S. former players talking about the mentality of Christian Pulisic. Does he want to play for the United States? Why is he turning down caps for the United States? And this has become the biggest controversy of his career. And going into the 2026 World Cup, it doesn't look good for Pulisic as well, especially how he ends the World Cup. So let's talk about the 2026 World Cup. So this is a big World Cup for the United States, hosting the World Cup on home soil. And this is a big World Cup for Pulisic, as well as the rest of the United States, to build their legacy as a tournament where the United States makes a deep run and show the world that soccer matters and U.S. soccer is here to stay. So let's talk about Pulisic's tournament. The game against Paraguay, amazing 45 minutes against Paraguay, where he gets an assist, and then at halftime he gets subbed off. He had a little injury he was dealing with. He does not play against Australia, and he's a late sub against Turkey just to get his fitness back. But the United States do win their group. Pulisic has an assist. The United States look good. Everything's all fine and dandy. The United States win 2-0 against Bosnia, and there's a whole lot we could talk about in that video with the Balogun red card and everything else of Donald Trump getting involved with it. But that's another video. So the United States win the round of 32 game, move on to the round of 16 against Belgium. Pulisic was not good. Pulisic was not good. Double-digit turnovers in the first half. He completed a lot of his passes, but most of his passes were just backwards passes. He struggled to gain anything on an attack, and the United States lose that game 4-1. Well, he leaves around the 60th minute with an injury in the game and doesn't finish the tournament. He only played one full game, and that was against Bosnia. And he only recorded one assist the entire World Cup. And this led to a lot of criticism, especially because many United States fans were hoping, if we're going to lose, we hope to go out like fist flying, not go out with this meek mentality. And Pulisic didn't look like he cared at all about the loss. So this led to a lot of controversy surrounding Christian Pulisic, and he faced a lot of criticism. So after leaving the match, his post-game interview, Pulisic said he was frustrated, but he also adds, "Now I get time to rest." So hopefully everything will be okay. Former United States women national team star Carly Lloyd, who was a pundit during this World Cup, responded on social media saying, "You rest when your playing career is over, period." Which, in my opinion, shows that many former players think that Christian's mentality is weak, where he doesn't have what it takes to compete at the international level and wear the national jersey with pride. And Lloyd's opinion is pretty much saying Christian Pulisic has a wrong mentality, has a weak mentality when it comes to playing the game. And this comes after Pulisic saying in the 2025 Gold Cup that he was missing the Gold Cup to rest and relax to be ready for the 2026 World Cup. Well, in Lloyd's point, he didn't show up in this World Cup. So where did the rest come in? Landon Donovan also adds, and he's been one of Pulisic's most vocal critics, and he doesn't say he has any personal agenda against Pulisic. He just says that he just has an opinion. He's a pundit now. And he said he has spoken to people throughout the American soccer system, and he said, "I speak to people who are at U.S. Soccer. I speak to his sponsors. I speak to his teammates. I speak to the staff and the coaches. People are fed up with the way things are handled around him. There's such a sense about him that you just can't get near him." And this is very interesting, because he's not really saying that Pulisic's playing poorly. He's questioning the environment surrounding Christian Pulisic. And he's suggesting that people in U.S. soccer are frustrated with how decisions involving Pulisic are handled. And he's implying and describing a sense that Pulisic is protected or separated from others around the program, and he's treated differently than others around the program. And it's described that, that they can't get near him implies distance between Pulisic, his teammates, coaches, staff, or media. Donovan did not directly identified really anyone of the people he claims to have spoken with, and the source remains anonymous at this time. But what I interpreted it as, it's maybe his family, his close friends, his agent that aren't allowing anyone to get too close to him. Other criticism he faced in the media was Alexi Lawless questioning Pulisic's leadership and willingness to embrace the pressure. Tim Howard has criticized him in the past for decisions surrounding international duty and commitment. This comes from the 2025 World Cup. And other former players and media personalities have repeatedly evaluated his mentality, such as Clint Dempsey. So, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly now. So, the good, he's one of the most important players that the United States has ever produced. He became the face of a generation, and he reached the national team as a teenager and actually succeeded as a teenager. And he gave the United States a lot of hope and was one of the main reasons they're able to rebound after a horrid 2018 World Cup qualifying. He has delivered major performances against Mexico that I will personally remember for a long time. And he has captained the team through many hard times, whether he wanted the captaincy or not. And he's created belief that an American player could succeed at the highest level, both internationally and overseas. However, there's also some bad. His injuries are consistently interrupting his international career. He's rarely entered major tournaments with perfect fitness. He sometimes has disappeared during major matches. And the national team often heavily depend on him, which I don't think is entirely his fault. But I think it has played an important factor in how he plays on the national team. His comments about the fans and the Morocco attendance definitely caused some questions and his disconnect with the fans. And then let's go into the ugly. He did become the face of the 2018 World Cup failed qualification, even though if he wasn't one of the team's best, even if he was one of the team's best performers. He was given very impossible expectations as an adult. Him not coming to the 2025 Gold Cup has caused a major issue with how he performed in the 2026 Gold Cup. It has really divided fans as well as pundits, and it suggests that even the U.S. Soccer Federation is frustrated with how Pulisic's team handles themselves. And supporters believe that Pulisic has developed a soft mentality that many of these players have. So I want to leave and end the video by saying this one last thing. The good is clear. Christian Pulisic has become one of the best and most important players in USMNT history. He has broken records, delivered major goals, and carried a generation of American soccer. The bad is also very clear. He has injuries, he's been inconsistent, he has controversial decisions that has prevented his international career from feeling completely smooth. And the ugly is every other thing surrounding him. The pressure people have put on him, the media debates, the former players questioning him, the fan division on whatever, if the things he are doing is right and wrong. And this leads to the final question. And the final question is not simply whether Christian Pulisic lived up to the hype. The real question is whether anyone could have lived up to the version of Christian Pulisic that American soccer created in its own imagination.